And joining us now is Ruby Chen, father of American-Israeli hostage Itai Chen, who was taken by Hamas on October 7th. Ruby will be tonight at the State of the Union address. Ruby, thank you once again for being with us. It has been 152 days since the Hamas massacre inside Israel, also when the hostages were taken. How are you and your family doing today?
Tired. We were at the White House yesterday meeting Jake Sullivan, that was willing to give us an update where the negotiations are. I think that the White House is very respectful of the fact that we are U.S. citizens and we should be entitled to hear what's going on, not just from the media. We have, of course, expectations in the upcoming days that we will have a deal in place. I had a dream the beginning of the week before coming here to the State of the Union that President Biden will actually acknowledge the fact that there are families of U.S. hostages, and he will say, guys, your kids are coming back home. Still have that hope.
Is that something that you think that the president could and should say tonight? Is that part of your dream?
It was, but I think the fact that I would argue with you that the majority of the U.S. people are not aware of the fact that there are 8 U.S. citizens being held hostage by a terrorist organization. And I do think it is appropriate that the president acknowledge that fact in his speech, because it should be one of the top things on the agenda of the United States people. And these people, U.S. citizens, were abducted, kidnapped, no sign of life, no medical attention, by a terrorist organization that is holding over 134 people for over 5 months. And I ask, where's the outcry of the United States people for that fact?
You know, Ruby, so many times when you and I have spoken over these months, you have talked about how, and now you're in D.C., but you're a New Yorker through and through in so many ways, and that your son is a New Yorker through and through. Ruby, as the days become weeks and become months, and you don't hear, there is no proof of life, there is no international organization that is going in and checking on the hostages and how they're doing. There's no medicine going into those that so desperately need it. How do you process this, Ruby?
It's difficult. You know, we need to keep the eye on the ball. I've come here with other U.S. families to Washington, advocating on behalf of our loved ones that the U.S. should and is doing all that it is possible. But we need to keep the pressure on, and we need to keep the pressure going until our loved ones are back home. Because, you know, Jose, I've been walking around Washington with this as well. That kind of illustrates the symbolic fact that the hostages are running out of time. This is time sensitive. It's not something that could wait for another month, end of the year. There are people that are dying because of lack of medical attention, lack of food, starvation. I won't even go into the torture, sexual torture that has been documented and is continuing. And let's not forget that these are the bad guys, Hamas. It's a terrorist organization. They need to be in a different place that they are after 5 months. And we need the international community, not just the United States, advocating that these hostages need to come out immediately. And if Hamas would just be willing to release hostages that they took, there would be a ceasefire in place within 5 minutes. And I don't understand why, you know, we're not able to get that deal in place.
You know, I look at that hourglass, and I'm sure you do, look at every single grain of sand that goes through that hourglass, and I just think, what is it that you want to tell your son that is going through what seems to be every second seems like a year for them? What is it that you want to maintain and make sure that he knows?
That we're fighting like he expects us to fight, that we're doing everything possible to get him out, that the U.S. administration is doing whatever it can, and it is a bipartisan effort. I'd like to acknowledge the fact that I was invited by Senator Graham from South Carolina to the State of the Union. My wife is here with me as well. Got invited from Senator Joni Ernst from Iowa. And this needs to be kept as a bipartisan issue. And we just need to get this to the finish line. That's the only thing that we need to keep on fighting for.
Ruby Chen, thank you for being with us today. I always appreciate your time.
Thank you, Jose. I thought actually by being here in Washington, we'll have a chance to finally meet face to face, but I keep that hope as well that we'll find the time to meet.
We will one day. Thanks.
Thank you, Jose. Bye.